Welcome to Singapore Property Talk Law, your guide to navigating the exciting, sometimes confusing world of Singapore real estate. I'm Damien, and today we're tackling a topic that's crucial for anyone looking to buy property here, OTPs.
That's right, the option to purchase. It's a key step in the buying process, and I'm Serene here to break it all down for you.
So, Serene, for our listeners who are just starting their property journey, let's start with the basics. What exactly is an option to purchase in the Singapore context?
An OTP is, well, it's a legal document that gives you, the buyer, the exclusive right to buy a specific property. It's like putting a temporary hold on your dream home at an agreed-upon price, and this hold lasts for a set period, giving you time to make a final decision.
Okay, so it's like calling dibs, but with legal backing. What's the typical time frame for this holding period?
For private properties, it's usually 14 days for each to be resale flats. You get a bit longer, 21 days. And the beauty of it is that during this option period, the seller cannot entertain any other offers. The ball is entirely in your court.
That's pretty powerful, especially in a competitive market like Singapore.
Yeah.
But this exclusive right comes at a cost, right? We hear about option fees. What are those all about?
You're absolutely right to secure that exclusive, right? You need to pay an option fee to the seller. Think of it as a deposit to show you're serious about the purchase for private properties. It's typically 1% of the agreed purchase price. HDB resale flats have a fixed option fee of $1,000.
Got it. So 1% to hold the property. And then let's say you've had some time to think, maybe you've consulted your partner, your feng shui master, whatever your decision-making process involves. You've decided you want to go ahead and buy the property. What happens next?
That's when you exercise the OTP. You let the seller know you're officially taking up the option to buy the property. But exercising the OTP comes with another fee, the exercise fee.
Okay, another fee to add to the list. What's the typical amount for this one?
For private properties, the exercise fee is usually 4% of the purchase price for HDB resale. It's up to $4,000. This combined with the 1% option fee you paid earlier brings your total down payment to 5%.
So that 5% down payment is a significant financial commitment. It's like saying, okay, I'm really serious about buying this place, but what if during this decision-making period you realize the property isn't what you thought it would be? Maybe the location isn't quite right, or there are some hidden issues you didn't notice before. Can you back out?
You absolutely can. If you decide not to proceed with the purchase, you simply let the option to purchase lapse. You'll lose the 1% option fee you paid, but that's a small price to pay compared to being stuck with a property you don't want.
That's a crucial point for our listeners. Losing that 1% might sting a bit, but it's better than regretting a major purchase. So this option period is essentially your chance to really do your homework and make sure this is the right property for you.
Exactly. This is your due diligence period. It's crucial to thoroughly investigate the property, review all the documents, and secure your financing before making that final decision.
Let's talk about those checks in more detail.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of homework should a buyer prioritize during the option period?
The first thing on your to-do list should be securing your financing. This means getting a housing loan approved. Don't just settle for the first offer you receive. Shop around, compare interest rates and loan terms from different banks and mortgage providers.
That makes sense. You want to get the best possible deal on your loan. What about the property itself? What kind of investigation should a buyer be doing during this time?
You want to thoroughly investigate the property and its history. This includes checking for any outstanding legal issues, understanding the property's condition, and even looking into the maintenance records of the building if it's a condo, find out about the management committee, any upcoming maintenance works, and how well the building is maintained.
So it's not just about viewing the property and liking the way it looks. There's some serious detective work involved.
Absolutely, and don't forget about the legal aspects. It's essential to have all the contracts and documents reviewed by a qualified lawyer specializing in property transactions. They can help you understand the fine print, identify any potential red flags, and ensure everything is in order before you commit to buying.
So securing financing, investigating the property thoroughly, and getting legal advice, those are the top priorities during the option period. But let's talk about some recent changes to the OTP process itself. There's been some buzz about new rules that impact buyers, particularly those buying from developers.
Yes, you're referring to the change that prevents developers from reissuing OTPs to the same buyer for the same unit. This came into effect in January 2025, and it's a significant change for buyers.
It's a pretty big deal. Can you explain why this change is so important for buyers, especially in the context of new launches?
Well, before this rule came into effect, developers could keep extending the option period by reissuing OTPs sometimes for months on end. This created a sense of urgency and pressure for buyers, making them feel like they had to make a decision quickly before they lost the unit.
So it was a tactic to pressure buyers into making a quick decision.
It could be perceived that way. Yes, this practice of reissuing OTPs also led to inflated sales figures for new launches. A unit might have been sold multiple times via reissued OTPs, but the buyer might not have exercised the option in the end.
So the sales figures didn't necessarily reflect the actual number of units sold. That's misleading. How does this new rule change things?
With this new rule in place, buyers now have more breathing room to make a decision. They don't feel that same pressure to commit before they're 100% ready. They can take their time, do their due diligence, and make a more informed decision.
That's a win for buyers. Yeah, for sure. More transparency and less pressure. Any other benefits to this new rule?
It also protects buyers from making rash decisions and potentially losing a significant amount of money. Previously, a buyer might have felt pressured to exercise the OTP even if they had doubts or hadn't fully completed their checks. If they later decided to back out, they would lose the 5% option and exercise fee, which can be a hefty sum, especially for higher-priced properties.
It sounds like this rule really shifts the balance of power more towards the buyer, giving them more control and protection. But even with these changes, there are still financial considerations beyond the option and exercise fees.
Right.
Right? What other costs should buyers be prepared for?
You're right, Damien. It's crucial to have a clear understanding of the total financial commitment before you even think about signing an OTP beyond the option and exercise fees. There are several additional costs involved in buying a property in Singapore.
Let's break down those additional costs. What are the major ones that buyers need to be aware of?
First, we have stamp duties. Specifically, the buyer's stamp duty, or BSD. This is a tax you pay based on the purchase price or market value of the property, whichever is higher.
Right, stamp duty, it's always there lurking in the background. What about legal fees? I imagine those can add up too.
Absolutely. You'll need a lawyer to help you with the legal processes involved in the purchase, which is known as conveyancing. These legal fees can vary depending on the complexity of the transaction and the lawyer you choose.
Okay, so stamp duty and legal fees are definitely on the list. Any other major costs that buyers should factor into their budget?
If you're buying a resale property or planning to renovate your new place, those costs can be significant. Renovation costs can easily balloon if you're not careful. It's important to have a realistic budget for renovations and factor that into your overall financial plan.
So we're talking about potentially tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, in additional costs on top of the purchase price and the option and exercise fees.
It's essential to paint a realistic picture. Buying a property is a significant financial undertaking. You need to be prepared for all the costs involved, not just the initial down payment.
To give our listeners a concrete example, let's say someone's looking to buy a typical condo in Singapore, perhaps around $1.5 million. What kind of upfront cash should they be prepared for?
For a $1.5 million condo, the option and exercise fees combined would be approximately $75,000. Then you need to add the buyer's stamp duty, which in this price range could be another $45,000 to $60,000.
So we're already well over $100,000.
And that's before you factor in the legal fees, which could be an additional $3,000 to $5,000. And then there are the renovation costs, depending on what you have in mind. Those could range from a modest $20,000 for a simple refresh to well over $100,000 for a major overhaul.
Wow, it's really important to understand the full financial picture before signing on that dotted line. It seems like buying a property in Singapore is a major commitment.
It is, but with careful planning, thorough research, and a realistic budget, it can be a rewarding investment.
Well, folks, it seems like we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the ins and outs of OTPs, discussed the recent rule changes that impact buyers, and highlighted the various costs involved in buying a property in Singapore. But before we wrap up this episode of Singapore Property Talk Law, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question. With all these changes to the OTP process, the increased transparency, and the shift in power towards buyers, do you think the days of quick flips and speculative buying in the Singapore property market are over?
That's an interesting question. The new rules definitely make it harder to flip properties quickly for a profit. Buyers have more time to consider their options, and the market data is more transparent, making it more difficult to capitalize on short-term price fluctuations.
So it's a move towards a more stable and sustainable property market.
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction. The focus is shifting towards genuine home buyers who are looking for a place to live rather than investors seeking quick returns. This is good news for long-term stability and a healthier property market overall.
That makes a lot of sense, Serene. You've shared a wealth of information about OTPs today. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners as they navigate the Singapore property market?
Well, remember, knowledge is power. Do your research, understand the process, and be financially prepared. Don't rush into any decisions and always seek professional advice if you're unsure about anything. Buying a property is a big decision, but with careful planning and the right guidance, it can be a rewarding and fulfilling experience.
Excellent advice.
Mhm.
Serene, thank you for joining us today and sharing your expertise on Singapore Property Talk Live.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this deep dive into OTPs helpful. Remember, take your time, do your due diligence, and make informed decisions. Happy house hunting.